Hey, YouTube family, how's everybody doing? Um, Today I gonna continue on, as I promised, my continuation of what happened that night in my first night in the jungles of Vietnam. Before I move forward, I always forget. Please like and subscribe. Brand new channel dedicated to military topics. Really appreciate if you could do that for me. So I explained that this was my first night in the jungles of Vietnam. I already had set out my claymore. I already had set up the trip flare, and we were settled for the night. Uh, I'm the AG to the M60 gunner. That night, the M60 gunner is to my left, and my sergeant is to the right. Um, Maybe he wanted to stay with me that night because being it was my first night, I don't know. There was three of us in that position. We were overlooking the trail. And in the last video, I talked about that it was pitch dark. I couldn't really see anything. Mosquitoes were kicking my ass, and I couldn't really sleep. It was an overcast night, and it was pretty dark. At one time I tried to put my hands in front of my eyes to see if I could see, and I could barely see the outline of my fingers. And when I looked to my left, I could see, barely see the gunner, and I looked to my right, I could barely see the sergeant, Sergeant Cardoso. But then, I said in my last video that I seen a light in the distance, and I found it strange that I would see a light in the pitch darkness of this jungle. It just doesn't make sense. Nobody in their right mind would tactically walk around with a flashlight. I don't care how safe you think that you're in, what if you feel that you're in a safe, secure area, even the enemy follows night and noise discipline even better than us. And there was a big no-no. We don't smoke no cigarettes at night. We don't put no flashlights at night. We must keep noise and light discipline always. Quiet, no loud talking, only whispering. And even me being a effing fucking new guy, I knew this. And from training and from talking to the guys in the platoon, I realized that, you got to stay tactically sound at all times, that your life depends on it. But I recall that somebody said in one of the briefings, and I took it as a joke. I didn't really take it serious, that sometimes the enemy, when he thinks he's secured, he'll walk around with a flashlight. And I found that very ridiculous. I thought it was stupid. Reason being that, in the Army, especially when you're new, they like to play practical jokes on people. Tell them things that are not really true because we're naive, we're gullible. And sometimes we believe anything. And I didn't fall for that. I said, yeah, no way. But then again, I see this light. And I said, it doesn't make no sense, even though I know that nobody walks around in a jungle with a flashlight. So I'm looking at this light at a distance. And it's coming closer. And it's moving around. I could tell that it's eye level. Sometimes it will go to the ground level. Like the guy who has the light, the flashlight, is looking at the trail to make sure that he doesn't trip over something, that he sees where he's going. Now, that's what's going through my head. That there's somebody out there, and it ain't us because we're all here on the perimeter. Anything out there is no man's land, okay? It's a kill zone. Anything in front of us is a kill zone. So anything in front of us is the enemy. We're all here in our perimeter. So I'm looking at this light, and it seems like it's getting closer. And all of a sudden, I start getting scared. And I'm saying to myself, I got to wake up the M60 gunner, and I got to wake up the sergeant. I could hear slight snoring. I know they're kind of asleep. And but I don't do it for some reason. I just froze. So I grab my M16 and I start pointing towards the light. And I take the selector switch from safety to semi. And I'm pointing my weapon at the light. And all of a sudden, I start feeling scared. The best way I could describe it if you ever seen the movie Platoon, uh, the scene where they're out on ambush and the guy, what's the actor's name? Mark Sheen, I think it is. He's sitting there and he just wakes up and he's wiping all the mosquitoes off of him, and he realized that somebody slept on guard, and all of a sudden he hears and see movement coming towards him, and then he realizes he could distinctively see that is the enemy. He could see the AK-47 in his hand, and the guy is slowly coming towards him, and he's looking at his M16, and his M16 is kind of out of reach. And all of a sudden you hear his heart thumping. In the movie, for the sound effects, they have it like his heart thumping. And that's the way I felt. I swear that if you were there, you probably could hear my heart thumping. Because I said to myself, shit, here goes the enemy. He's walking straight at me. He's walking with a light. And I froze. It's pitch dark. So I'm pointing at this thing with my weapon, and finally I come to my senses, and I talked to I decided, instead of opening the talking to the gunner, Pancho, that was his name. I went to the sergeant and I started, I reached out to him. He was close by that I can actually touch him, and I said, I kind of whisper, San Cardoso. And he didn't respond, And I said, Sergeant Cardoso. And then he said, I could hear him say, what? And I kind of like whisper. I don't want to be loud because I don't want the person that's coming towards my position to hear me. And I said, I think I see the enemy. So I can hardly see them, but I could tell that he got up. He sat up. And he says, I could hear him clearly. He says, where? And I'm pointing, and it's ridiculous because I know he can't tell where I'm pointing at because it's so freaking pitch dark. So I'm pointing at this thing, and he keeps saying, where? What do you see? And I said, I see a light. I see like a flashlight. And then, there was silence, and he says, what? Where? And I'm already getting annoyed. Like I'm saying to myself, you freaking idiot. Can you see the light coming at us, man? The guy is getting closer. I'm pretty sure that he's the lead guy, he's the point man, and there's probably people behind him. So, I pick up my weapon again, and I'm aiming at this thing, and I'm still talking to him, right there in front of me, the light. And again, he says, what? I feel that the light was, I don't know, in my mind, 25 meters or less. And I'm saying to myself, apparently he didn't trip the trip flare, okay? And I didn't even think about the Claymore, about using the clocker to use it, because I'm waiting for somebody to trip the trip flare. So I'm slowly squeezing, like a few of my fingers squeezing the trigger. And then all of a sudden, Sergeant Cardoso, he realized what I'm looking at. And folks, it's not what you think it is. And I hate to leave you like this, but Sergeant Cardoso also says, I can hear him say, you dummy, that's a freaking lightning bug. That's not a goddamn enemy. And he didn't laugh. I didn't laugh. I didn't think it was funny. I felt stupid. But you got to understand, I'm a new guy. Anything out there, any noise out there, any light out there, in my mind is a freaking enemy. And he never said nothing to me in the morning about this incident. And I don't think he told anybody about it. The freaking machine gunner, he was asleep the whole time. He never woke up. And I felt so foolish. I said, I see a freaking lightning bug, and to me it's a goddamn flashlight. And that's how scared I was. Like, I'm, my first night, and I'm already imagining things and seeing things and hearing things, and my mind is playing with me, and I'm ready to freaking open up my M16 on a goddamn bug. And you see here in this video, say, you're stupid or something. I mean, but you don't gotta say, you gotta be there. You gotta be there and see it through my eyes. A new guy, just got there in country, don't know anything. I'm just brand new. But you know what proved it? What when I started analyzing this, when I finally fell asleep, and in the morning I woke up and I started thinking about that, and I started chuckling to myself and laughing to myself. I said to myself, in my mind, in my mind, I thought that was the enemy, and I was ready to open up my F-16 and kill whoever was there. So that proved to me that I was ready to commit and shoot first before they shot me, even though it was a freaking bug. Okay? There's a lot of freaking things happen in war zones. Some of them are the real shit, and people get hurt and people get killed. But there's a lot of funny shit that happens out there in the jungle that, just like this, where GIs freak out and imagine noises, imagine seeing things. And it ain't the first time that I will see things in the jungle and I will imagine seeing stuff. And other guys with me also. But, you know, the mind plays tricks on you. When it's quiet and all you can hear is bugs and it's pitch dark, and you know that you're in a place that you gotta kill or be killed, you start seeing shit and you start hearing shit. But thank God, man, it wasn't a person that was trying to come up to my position or persons, and it was just a freaking bug, man, a freaking bug. So I'll leave it at that, folks. And I hate to leave it a cliffhanger that like that, but you know that's it. That's I remember. I'm being honest. I'm being honest. I'm telling you exactly my experience, and I will continue the series about Vietnam as we go forward. Like and subscribe, and take care, folks. And good night.